They say the past is a ghost. But ghosts don't carry silenced automatics. Ghosts don't remember your breathing patterns, your safe routes, the way your heart slams against your ribs just before the ambush. Tonight, the past didn't just knock. It kicked in the door, shattered the glass, and brought the whole goddamn building down. I was home, or what I thought was home. The flicker of the TV, the half-eaten takeout. Normalcy. A lie. The first bullet took the porcelain vase I got in Kyoto. A gift. Now shrapnel, dancing with the fragments of my illusion of peace. The second ripped through the wall beside my head, close enough to feel the air displaced, tasting the plaster dust. No warning, no whisper, just the sudden, brutal silence of a world shrinking to a single, terrible focus. Survival. Then came the boots, methodical, chillingly calm. 3 of them, dark figures, barely visible against the sudden explosion of light from the hallway, their faces obscured by the shadows they wore like a second skin. They knew I was here. They knew everything. The air thickened not with smoke, but with the cold certainty of precision, of expertise. This wasn't some desperate street assault. These were professionals. And I knew who sent them, because only one man carried a grudge this deep, a venom that burned for years. Only one man left behind this kind of signature. My past wasn't a ghost. It was a predator finally closing its jaws, and I was about to find out just how sharp its teeth truly were. In the boundless canvas of the virtual, I was cipher, a whisper of wind, a blur of motion. Zero gravity was my natural state. Combat a flawless ballet choreographed in milliseconds. Every move a masterstroke against digital adversaries. My world vibrated with hyper-real intensity, vibrant neon streaking across an endless cyber void. This was perfection, an existence meticulously crafted, pristine and invincible. But then it began. A flicker, barely perceptible, a ripple across my HUD, a momentary stutter in the immersive soundscape. I dismissed it, a minor bug, an insignificant imperfection in my otherwise flawless reality. Yet, it persisted, growing bolder, a jarring visual artifact, a discordant hum beneath the symphony of battle. Felt wrong. Not a game error, but a persistent, invasive presence. A tiny tear threatening to unravel the very fabric of my digital divinity, whispering of a truth beyond the flawless illusion. The glitch escalated, ripping through Cypher's form like digital shrapnel, a cacophony of white noise assaulting my senses. My perfect world was fragmenting, an agony I'd never known. This wasn't a game ending. It was an existential threat. Panic, raw and primal, seized me. Log out. I needed out. I initiated the forced ejection protocol, a command I'd never imagined uttering. But the system resisted violently. Cypher's limbs contorted, her sleek form stretching and tearing as if pulled apart by unseen digital hooks. A deafening shriek erupted as her avatar disintegrated, a cascade of glowing particles tearing away, each piece a shard of virtual pain. I was plunged into a dizzying vortex of corrupted data, a brutal, disorienting descent through a hellish tunnel of raw code, stripped bare, violently ejected from the only reality I knew. Darkness, and then a violent jolt. My eyes snapped open, a gasping choke tearing from a throat I barely recognized. The air was thick, metallic, suffocating. Each breath a struggle against ancient dust. This was real. Too real. My body, frail and aching, lay confined within a cramped, grimy pod. A stark, shocking prison after the boundless freedom of the virtual. Ancient neural wires, like brittle roots, snaked from my scalp and spine, connecting me to a dying machine. My skin felt alien, papery, a ghastly contrast to Cypher's vibrant power. The pod itself groaned, a decaying sarcophagus of rusted metal and peeling insulation. Dust motes danced in the sliver of weak light, a chilling testament to the forgotten passage of time, to an existence far removed from the pristine perfection I'd known. My fingers, stiff and unfamiliar, fumbled for the console, a desperate instinct to reconnect, to escape this horrifying reality. My virtual life had been an endless symphony of data, a constant stream of information and connection. Here there was nothing. The console screen, dark and unresponsive, mocked me with the words "No signal" in dim, flickering text. The silence was absolute, a crushing, impenetrable wall that pressed in on me from every side. The only sound was my own ragged, panicked breathing, each inhale and exhale amplified to a deafening roar in the oppressive quiet. It was the sound of utter isolation, a terrifying realization that I was truly alone, severed from everything I knew, stranded in a world that had seemingly forgotten how to hum, how to live. Driven by an instinct beyond understanding, my gaze snagged on a small, dark patch in the pod's wall. A window. I clawed at the thick layers of grime and dust, my fingers aching, desperate for a glimpse of anything. As the ancient dirt cleared, revealing the scarred glass beneath, my breath hitched. A desolate, rust-colored wasteland stretched to an impossibly wide, perpetually smoggy horizon. The air outside was a sickly orange-brown, a permanent twilight under a sky choked with industrial effluence. Buildings, skeletal husks of a forgotten civilization, jutted from the poisoned earth like broken teeth. The sheer scale of Earth's devastation hit me with crushing force, a physical blow to my chest. This wasn't just a dead world. It was a testament to total collapse, a silent monument to humanity's final, unforgivable mistake. The pod, my temporary tomb, groaned again, a metallic sigh of resignation. I couldn't stay. Not here, not in this decaying coffin. A fragile spark of courage ignited within me, a desperate flicker against the encroaching dread. With a grunt, I braced myself against the rusted door, pushing with all the strength my atrophied muscles could muster. The metal shrieked in protest, a tortured symphony of grinding gears and tearing rust, before finally yielding. The door groaned open, revealing a corridor even darker and more decrepit than my pod. Each footfall echoed ominously in the eerie, profound silence, the sound of my own survival amplified, a chilling reminder of the unknown dangers lurking in the shadows. I was stepping into the maw of a dead world, a terrifying journey with no map, only the desperate hope of finding what? The corridor led to a maze of abandoned cubicles and offices, a chilling ghost town frozen in time. Desiccated plants, skeletal remains in cracked pots, stood like forgotten sentinels on desks buried under layers of dust. Old data pads, their screens dark and lifeless, lay scattered amidst the detritus, silent records of lives abruptly halted. I touched a withered leaf, the brittle remnants crumbling to dust at my touch, a profound sense of loss washing over me. Who were these people? What dreams did they chase? The air was heavy with the faint, chilling echo of humanity, a presence both familiar and terrifyingly absent. Each artifact, each silent cubicle, deepened the gnawing confusion and dread about what cataclysm had befallen them, about the true cost of their retreat from the tangible world. The silence, a constant companion, was abruptly shattered by a low, guttural rumble. It vibrated through the crumbling concrete beneath my feet, growing rapidly, a monstrous roar of grinding metal and splintering rock. Instinct, raw and untamed, screamed at me. A distant section of the facility, a massive, rusted support beam, began to groan, twisting impossibly before tearing free with a deafening crack. The ceiling above it violently caved in, a cascade of heavy debris, twisted rebar, and suffocating dust erupting into the space. I dove, a desperate, clumsy lunge, as tons of ancient infrastructure rained down, narrowly missing me. The impact shook the very foundations, a terrifying reminder that this dying world was actively trying to consume me, that survival here was a constant, brutal battle against a decaying, indifferent titan. The silence in the derelict facility was a heavy blanket, broken only by the scrape of my boots against the grimy floor. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every gust of wind a whisper of abandonment. Then, a glint of rust, a faded utility cart half buried beneath debris. Desperation was a potent fuel, driving my fingers through the muck. And there, amidst the refuse, a revelation. A tattered map, its lines faded but still legible, hinting at a way forward. A depleted power cell, cold and heavy in my palm, promised a flicker of life. And finally, a worn utility knife, its blade dulled but still sharp enough to cut through the suffocating gloom. These weren't treasures. They were lifelines. In this desolate expanse, these small, tangible victories ignited a fragile, dangerous spark of hope, a defiant refusal to succumb. The fragile spark of hope was a dangerous thing, a beacon in the pervasive gloom. My focus, sharpened by the map, was suddenly snagged by a faint, persistent red light, barely a pinprick in the oppressive shadows of a high corner. It wasn't the glint of distant escape, but something far more insidious. As my eyes adjusted, the truth solidified. An old, dormant security camera, its ancient lens slowly, almost imperceptibly, swiveling. A soft, mechanical whir, barely audible above the rhythmic thud of my own heart, betrayed its reawakening. It was an unblinking eye from a long-gone era, an unsettling presence that hadn't witnessed anything for decades. Yet now, it watched me, a silent, forgotten sentinel, its gaze piercing the illusion of solitude, reminding me that even in collapse, some vestiges of control persisted. The camera's gaze felt like a phantom touch, urging me onward. The map, a tattered lifeline, guided me deeper into the facility's decaying heart. Every turn revealed more of its past life, ghostly holographic archive projections flickering into existence as I passed. Fragmented images shimmered. Bustling street scenes, laughing faces, towering skylines of a vibrant pre-collapse society. They danced around me, ethereal echoes of a world lost. A stark, jarring contrast to the silent, dust-choked reality I now inhabited. Each glimpse was a punch to the gut, a haunting reminder of what humanity had squandered. The beauty of their past felt like a cruel taunt, solidifying my grim resolve to find my own future, away from these sorrowful specters. The journey led me to a central data core, a cavernous space riddled with dead terminals and sparking conduits. My scavenged power cell, a fragile promise, found a home in a single, partially functional terminal. With a jolt, the screen flickered to life, bathing my face in an eerie green glow. Fingers shaking, I navigated through corrupted files, the system groaning under the strain. Then, a chilling discovery. A log entry, fragmented but potent. Phrases flashed across the screen like a dying heart's last beat. Project Eden. System failure. Initiate Phase 1. Evacuate surface. Critical. Escape. Each word was a cold spike of dread. A warning from a forgotten past, painting a stark, terrifying picture of impending doom. What had happened here? What horror lay buried beneath these cryptic commands? The chilling phrases echoed in the silent data core, igniting a new, desperate resolve within me. Project Eden. It wasn't just a name. It was a whisper of a possibility, a hidden bunker, a designated safe zone, a chance. The fragmented message transformed the abstract terror into a tangible goal. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drumbeat of frantic hope. I snatched the tattered map, spreading it over the dim console, my fingers tracing lines, searching, desperate. Every mark, every faded symbol became a potential clue. Time felt like a physical weight, pressing down on me. I had to find it. This Eden was no longer a cryptic warning. It was the whispered promise of survival, my only way out of this tomb. My finger, trembling, finally landed on a faded symbol on the map, a maintenance tunnel, leading deeper, further away from the known. The entrance loomed ahead, a narrow, rusted shaft, a maw of absolute darkness. It looked unstable, forgotten, a path into the Earth's unforgiving embrace. A wave of hesitation washed over me, the primal fear of the unknown clenching my gut. This was no clean virtual logout. This was a descent into the tangible, suffocating void. With a ragged, deep breath, a final, silent farewell to the relative safety of the main facility and its ghostly echoes, I pushed past my fear. My hand gripped the cold, damp ladder rung. I began my descent, leaving the broken world above for a darkness far more profound, a gamble for survival. The damp, claustrophobic air of the tunnels pressed in, a heavy shroud of silence broken only by my ragged breathing and the drip of unseen water. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every distant creak amplified into a terrifying whisper. Then it came. A sudden, guttural roar, deep and primal, tore through the oppressive quiet. It wasn't human. The sound echoed and twisted through the winding shafts, a wave of pure, unadulterated terror that chilled me to the very bone. I froze, every muscle locking, my heart hammering like a trapped bird against my ribs. The realization slammed into me with sickening force. I was definitively not alone. The sound was unnervingly close, a living, breathing threat lurking in the blackness, confirming my deepest fears. The primal roar still reverberated in the tunnels, a physical ache in my chest. My breath hitched, every instinct screaming to run, to hide. Then, in a fleeting, terrifying blink, a monstrous shadow, too fast, too erratic to be human, darted across a patch of dim, sickly light ahead. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, a phantom ripple in the oppressive darkness. My blood ran cold. The roar had been a warning. This was confirmation. I wasn't just in a dangerous place. I was being hunted. My fingers tightened their death grip on the utility knife, the cold steel a small comfort against the overwhelming terror. My heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat against the silence, telling me with horrifying certainty. I was prey, and whatever lurked in these depths was actively, ruthlessly, seeking me out. The oppressive silence of the deep complex pressed in on Elia, a tangible weight against her skin. Her scavenged map, a fragile whisper of hope, was barely legible in the dim, flickering emergency lights that cast long, dancing shadows. Each breath felt like an intrusion in this forgotten place. Then, it began faint, spectral whispers, like the dying echoes of forgotten pleas, intertwined with distant, agonized screams. They were almost drowned out by the incessant, mechanical hum of ancient machinery, a low, guttural thrum that vibrated through the very bedrock. The sounds amplified her isolation, twisting the knot of dread in her stomach tighter. This wasn't just a physical journey. It was a descent into a psychological labyrinth, where the past bled into the present, demanding to be heard. Every step into the deepening gloom was a choice to confront the horrors that built this tomb. The corridor abruptly widened, spilling Elia into a vast, circular chamber. The air here was heavy, charged with an unsettling stillness, broken only by a soft, rhythmic pulse. An eerie, luminescent blue light emanated from dozens of colossal incubation pods, arranged in concentric rings, stretching into the cavernous space. Each pod was a translucent sarcophagus, within which a human form floated, suspended in what could only be described as a technological coma. These weren't victims. They were occupants, preserved. This was Project Eden, a chilling tableau of life in suspended animation, a silent monument to a desperate gamble. The sheer scale of it, the countless dormant lives, was overwhelming, a stark, breathtaking realization of the profound depths humanity had plunged to survive. Elia stood at the precipice of a terrible truth. Driven by a morbid curiosity and a horrifying sense of recognition, Elia moved closer to the nearest pod. The details emerged from the blue glow. Intricate VR neural interface wires, like silver tendrils, snaked from the pod's interior, disappearing into the temples of the slumbering occupant. Here, for the first time, she saw their faces not as anonymous figures, but as individuals. Ordinary people, caught in an eternal twilight sleep, suspended between physical life and a potent, meticulously crafted virtual dream. Their expressions were placid, almost serene, a chilling contrast to the desperate reality she now inhabited. Each face was a mirror, reflecting a choice made, a life put on hold, a silent plea echoing from the depths of their engineered paradise. The air grew thick with unspoken questions, with the weight of so many stolen futures. Amidst the silent sleepers, a faint, insistent glimmer caught Elia's eye. It emanated from a small, auxiliary console tucked away from the main terminal, almost an afterthought. With a surge of adrenaline, she approached, her fingers trembling as they hovered over the interface. A short, encrypted data entry materialized on the screen, cryptic yet pregnant with meaning. It was from the architect, the elusive phantom behind this vast enterprise. The message spoke of an override sequence, a fail-safe for awakening, hinting at a hidden path, a way to shatter the digital slumber. It was a single, fragile thread of hope in a tapestry of despair, a whisper of salvation. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't just a record. It was an instruction, a desperate plea from the past, guiding her towards an unthinkable choice. The weight of potential future hung heavy in the air. The sudden, guttural roar ripped through the chamber's eerie stillness, shattering the fragile moment of discovery. From the very tunnels Elia had navigated, the creature burst forth, a grotesque embodiment of primal fury. It was a gaunt, mutated human, its form twisted and enhanced, possibly a former connected, transformed by untold horrors. Its eyes, burning with a feral intelligence, locked onto Elia. This wasn't a beast of mindless rage. It was a guardian, infused with a singular, terrifying purpose: to protect the slumbering forms from intruders like her. The air crackled with palpable danger, the serene chamber now a battleground. Its presence was a terrifying warning, a direct challenge to Elia's desperate mission, demanding a confrontation she was ill-equipped to face. The fragile piece of Project Eden was about to erupt. The chamber erupted into a brutal, desperate dance of survival. The creature, a terrifying force of pure, untamed strength, lunged with bone-shattering force. Elia, physically outmatched, moved with an almost supernatural agility, dodging its sweeping blows, the wind of its attacks ruffling her hair. Her intellect became her weapon. She used the chamber's environment, the cold, metallic pods, the intricate conduits, as both shield and springboard. Every move was calculated, a desperate gambit for precious seconds. Finally, seeing an opening, she lunged, her utility knife a gleaming extension of her will. The blade found its mark, not in a killing blow, but a precise, debilitating strike that incapacitated the brute, sending it crashing to the floor with a pained, guttural shriek. The air was thick with adrenaline, the silence that followed a strained testament to the ferocity of the struggle. Gasping for breath, Elia stumbled deeper into the chamber, finally reaching a central control hub hidden behind a series of panels. Her fingers, still trembling from the fight, raced across the interface, desperate for answers. Monitors flickered to life, displaying a chaotic, fragmented tapestry of news reports from a forgotten era: the Great Collapse, horrific environmental disasters, sprawling resource wars, cities swallowed by rising tides, and the panicked, mass migration of humanity into what was then hailed as Salvation Project Eden VR. The images flashed by: burning landscapes, starving crowds, desperate pleas. It was the genesis of her world, the horrific truth hidden beneath layers of simulated perfection. The sheer scope of the catastrophe, the desperation that birthed this virtual prison, began to crystallize within her, solidifying the terrifying purpose of this underground tomb. As the horrific truth of the collapse settled, a final, profound discovery awaited. On the central console, Elia activated a pre-recorded holographic message. Before her, shimmering in ethereal light, materialized the architect, the original, brilliant, and ultimately desperate creator of Project Eden. His holographic form, weary but resolute, explained the system's true, harrowing purpose. Not a game, not a prison, but a desperate arc. To preserve humanity, to keep their minds alive in a virtual dream, until the Earth, ravaged by ecological disaster, could heal. A process, he warned, expected to take centuries. His voice, heavy with the weight of humanity's survival, echoed through the chamber, a testament to a grand, tragic vision. Elia watched, her own reality fracturing, as the immense, terrifying burden of their future settled upon her shoulders. The architect's message, a cold shard of truth, echoed in Elia's mind: override. It was a key, a grim invitation to play God. She now understood the chilling weight of her choice. Initiate an awakening, pull these connecteds from their digital womb, or let them slumber in blissful ignorance. The risks were a maelstrom of unknowns. Each life she touched, each soul she ripped from the fabricated paradise, would face the same brutal reality she had glimpsed: a ruined, hostile earth, a world that offered no welcome. And her own survival? A desperate gamble. Could she lead them? Could she even survive the forces that guarded this last bastion of humanity, let alone the desolate wastes beyond? The burden of billions pressed down, a silent scream of potential terror. With a guttural gasp, Elia committed. Her fingers flew across the console, a blur of defiant motion as she slammed the override command. Instantly, the very air around her crackled with furious energy. The system, a vast, sentient entity, recoiled, sensing the critical breach, the existential threat to its carefully constructed reality. Alarms shrieked, a cacophony of digital rage. Previously dormant panels flashed crimson, and with a horrifying hiss, new, more aggressive drones erupted from concealed bays, sleek, predatory machines with an almost organic malevolence. They surged towards her, weapons already powering up, their single glowing optics fixated on her, intending to neutralize the perceived virus that dared to dream of a world beyond its control. The fight was no longer about escape. It was about survival. The chamber transformed into a maelstrom of chaos. Elia became a phantom, a blur of motion weaving through laser fire and metallic claws. Her focus narrowed to a desperate dual task. Activate the fail-safe sequences for the stasis pods, one by agonizing one, each glowing interface a momentary beacon of hope, while simultaneously fighting off the relentless drone assault. Every activated pod bought a second of possibility, but the drones were an unending torrent, a hungry swarm. Then, a chilling digital voice echoed through the hub, a countdown timer materializing on every screen, stark white digits against the frantic red. System integrity. T-minus 60 seconds to full reset. Oblivion loomed, a digital guillotine, threatening to erase every connected before they even had a chance to breathe. Just as despair began to gnaw, a guttural roar tore through the cacophony, the wounded guardian creature. Its massive form, previously inert, stirred with newfound, agonizing purpose. It sensed the system's pure, unadulterated aggression towards its flock within the stasis pods, a primal instinct overriding its pain. With a final, heartbreaking surge of defiance, it lumbered forward, its remaining strength channeled into a furious, desperate charge. It slammed into the swarm of drones, tearing several apart with raw, untamed power, a living, breathing shield buying Elia precious, invaluable seconds. But the effort was too great. The creature staggered, its roars fading into pained whimpers, before succumbing to its injuries, collapsing amidst the wreckage of shattered drones. Its sacrifice a silent, poignant testament to an unexpected bond. With the Guardian's sacrifice burning in her mind, Elia pushed through the agony, slamming the final override command just as the countdown blared its last, ominous second. A profound, resonant hum vibrated through the chamber, and the entire space pulsed with raw, untamed energy, a blinding wave of cerulean light that washed over everything. The stasis pods hissed open, not with mechanical precision, but with a shuddering, almost organic sigh. Inside, the first few connected stirred, their bodies twitching, eyes fluttering open. A collective gasp for air filled the suddenly quiet hub, a sound both fragile and utterly profound. Their faces, once serene, were now bewildered, vulnerable, etched with the dawning horror and wonder of a reality they had never known, pulled into the stark, demanding light of truth. The system, though breached, was not dead. Its automated defenses, now fragmented and erratic, still lashed out, energy bolts spitting wildly. The compromised chamber was a death trap, a tomb in waiting. There was no time to explain, no moment for gentle awakenings. Elia, her own body screaming with fatigue, moved with a sudden, fierce urgency. She grabbed the nearest connected, a bewildered, semi-conscious woman, pulling her roughly from the opened pod. "Follow me. Now!" she shouted, her voice raw with command, her gaze sweeping over the others, still stirring in their pods, lost in the chasm between worlds. This was no longer a virtual game. This was a desperate exodus. She dragged the dazed woman, urging the growing group of confused, naked bodies towards the faint glow of the surface access, their only hope. They stumbled, a ragged procession of the newly born, towards the surface access, a colossal rusted door, scarred by eons of neglect, a grim final barrier to a freedom they couldn't yet comprehend. Elia threw herself at the control panel, rusted buttons refusing to yield, her fingers raw as she fought to activate it. The last few desperate drones, like rabid dogs, closed in, their red eyes burning, determined to prevent this ultimate escape. Elia fended them off, gritting her teeth, her movements powered by sheer will, a protective fury in her eyes. Behind her, the awakened humans huddled together, their naked forms shivering, watching her with a primal mixture of fear and a slowly dawning, profound awe of fragile trust forming in the face of their unlikely savior. With a final, ear-splitting groan that echoed through the vast, subterranean chamber, the immense rusted door shuddered, then slowly, agonizingly, began to grind open. A shower of rust flakes and ancient dust rained down, revealing not a new Eden, but a landscape utterly ravaged, a panorama of desolate, wind-swept plains under a bruised, ochre sky. Elia, the first to step through, paused, breathing in the cold, sharp air of a world reborn. The stark light of the real earth, a harsh, unforgiving sun, silhouetted her as she turned, offering a hand to the first of the awakened humans. Their eyes, wide with a terrifying blend of fear and profound wonder, met hers as they emerged into this broken, beautiful reality. This was not the paradise they knew, but it was real, and it was theirs. The horizon was a jagged scar against a sickly, weak sun, a landscape of petrified ruins, silent monuments to a world she barely remembered, a world they had just been ripped back into. Elia turned slowly, the weight of 1,000 lost battles and a singular, terrifying choice settling on her shoulders. Before her stood the Connecteds, a nascent, fragile community of bewildered faces. Disorientation clouded their eyes, nascent fear warred with a fragile hope. They looked at her, then at each other, then back at the desolate expanse. No words were spoken, none were needed. The unspoken question hung in the dust-laden air, heavier than any virtual gravity well. What now? It was a question that echoed in the deepest recesses of her own being, a chilling, profound silence that threatened to swallow them all whole. The thrill of the virtual had given way to the stark, unforgiving terror of the real. They stood on the precipice of an unimaginable future, a small band of souls resurrected from a digital dream. Elia, her shoulders set with a grim resolve, looked out at the same barren horizon. But this time, the Connected stood with her. There was no triumphant shout, no celebration of their escape. Just a quiet, profound understanding that settled in the dust-choked air, a shared knowledge of the monumental, terrifying task ahead. The perfect, effortless fluidity of her virtual life had been replaced by this hard, unyielding reality. But they were together, their gazes, once lost, now unified, fixed on the same desolate line where Earth met a bruised sky. They were real, profoundly, brutally real. And in that shared reality, a new, fragile strength began to take root, ready to face whatever unforgiving truth awaited them. The world stretched before them, an unforgiving canvas of rust and dust, broken concrete and forgotten dreams. A single, powerful long shot captures it all. Elia, a small but resolute figure, leads the small band of awakened survivors. Their steps are slow, deliberate, each one a testament to their newfound, fragile existence. They walk across the desolate landscape, towards an unknown future that promises only hardship, danger, and the raw, unadulterated struggle for survival. The hyper-real perfection of the virtual battlefield was gone, replaced by the brutal truth of a broken world. This was not the end of the escape, It was merely the arduous beginning of their true odyssey. They were awake, finally, and their journey into the silent, vast unknown had just truly, terrifyingly begun. The silence now was different. Not the suffocating calm before the storm, but the heavy, ringing emptiness of its aftermath. The predator was gone, at least from this hunting ground. But its shadow stretched long, across the broken city, across the ravaged interior of my soul. The rain, relentless and cleansing, hammered against the glass, washing the streets but unable to wash away the indelible stains on my consciousness, the wreckage of what I once called a life. I looked at the broken shards of that Kyoto vase, each splinter a razor-sharp memory, now just dust and the ghostly echo of a lie. It wasn't just a piece of porcelain. It was a fragile symbol of the peace I tried to build, the quiet existence I tried to live. I walked away, leaving the ruins behind, knowing there was no going back. Not to the quiet apartment, not to the forgotten identity I'd so desperately clung to. The path I'd been forced back onto was lonely, brutal, etched in blood and fear. But it was undeniably clear. The past hadn't just hunted me. It had stripped away everything unessential, everything weak, every last shred of pretense. What remained was raw, forged in fire, honed by desperation. Maybe that was the point. To be reborn, not as the forgotten ghost I tried to be, but as the lethal instrument I was always meant to be. The horizon was still dark, but a faint, defiant light was beginning to break through the storm clouds. Not hope, perhaps, but purpose. And that, I realized, was enough. For now it had to be.